there's no better education than getting out and seeing the world.
The experiences are what you're going to remember in the long run.
Getting out to see the world has just really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
I know a little bit about a lot of random things, and that's because of travel.
We're going to learn so much more and stay up to date with these destinations.
It's going to help us get even better at building group itineraries.
I'm really looking forward to having great conversations about places.
Welcome to Destination Dispatch.
Hello, I'm Jim Delleman with Group Travel Odyssey, and I do want to welcome you once again to yet another Destination Dispatch. Before we get started with our destination today, I do just want to remind you we would love if you would connect with us on our social media platforms. You can link to us on LinkedIn. That makes sense. Please make sure to like our Facebook page as well. And if you're following us or watching us on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And also, if you ring the little bell, you'll be notified anytime we have new content on our YouTube channel. So keep all of that in mind. We have a really fantastic destination that we want to bring news and exciting things to you about in just a few minutes. But to help me do that, I do want to bring on our co-hosts. Please help me bring on right now our lead navigator from Group Travel Odyssey, Keith Snowd. Hey, Keith.
Hey, Jim. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm getting used to a little of this northern weather after a few fantastic days in Orlando, but you know.
Well, I understand that we're sending our weather to you here shortly.
Yes, you are. And I'm looking forward to it. I actually really am, at least, right now. Ask me that again in August and I might change my mind.
I understand that statement.
Well, also to help us out today, we've got the host of Destinations Beyond Expectations podcast, Stevie G. Stevie.
What's going on, gentlemen? Great to see you guys.
Good seeing you again. Thanks for coming on again. You guys, I believe you all have been to this destination. You guys have been to Gettysburg?
Yes, many times.
No for me.
Oh. Wow. You're going to learn a lot today.
I know.
A lot. Gettysburg was actually one
Is
of
Jim
my...
frozen there, Keith?
Pardon?
Oh, sorry. Am I frozen? Am I good?
No,
You're good.
You're good.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. Gettysburg was the first high school trip that I did when I was in high school. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. There's just so much going on in Gettysburg. And, they've been through a lot over these past couple of years, like we all have, but my gosh, it's such an incredible destination. They've got so much that they can offer for your groups. And, instead of us talking about it, we will bring on one of the experts. So help me bring on to our screen right now, the Director of Sales at Destination Gettysburg, Lindsay Methlie. Lindsay, hi.
Hey, Lindsay.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for joining us today. We're gonna fill Stevie in because we find out now that Stevie has not been to Gettysburg. So we'll change that definitely. But we're gonna fill him in on everything that there is in Gettysburg that makes it such a fantastic place for groups. There's so much history and everything like that in Gettysburg. But what is new and exciting going on in Gettysburg right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you asked. We actually have a brand new World War II American experience, which is still yet to open. They are going to be opening a soft opening coming up here in June, and then they'll do a big grand opening with a USO dance coming up in the fall. But they're going to have everything from exhibits and dioramas to an amazing collection of vehicles, tanks, trucks, Jeeps, ambulances, kind of everything you can think of. It's really a great experience, and it ties in really well with our Eisenhower Historical Site, which is in Gettysburg as well. And then in addition to that, we have the Lincoln train station, which just underwent a renovation and is reopening with a virtual reality concept. So it tells the story of some of the townspeople, and kind of how their role played into things when Lincoln came to town, and gives people a different perspective of the civilian side, in addition to tying that into the Lincoln train station where everything happened with the Gettysburg Address. So those are the kind of top two that we're super excited about for this year. We've got some things coming down the pipeline for next year as well.
And that's really wonderful because, I was telling you earlier, I have friends that go back to Gettysburg every single year. And, for our group travel planners, they a lot of times will take the trips back every year, but they like to do a lot of the same things. It's nice to know that there are a lot of new things that are happening this year and also on the horizon, that our operators can go ahead and add to their itineraries. That's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing is both of them have been, working with us on making sure that they're very group friendly. When the new World War II museum put everything in, they made sure they had, several bus parking spots and just making sure that they're ready for those bus tours, which everybody loves so much in Gettysburg.
So, Lindsay, I know that that Gettysburg is really known for being steeped in history. That's the way I came to know Gettysburg. But talk to us about some of the other things that groups would do that maybe just aren't centered around history, because I know there's a variety of things available in Gettysburg for groups.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously there's everything with the battle, which is what we're known for. There are a lot of our museums and attractions that also tell the civilian side. So if you're not into all the dates and times and generals, it gives you just a perspective of someone who could have been living their life and this war came, right into their backyards and how they handled it. So that's a favorite that a lot of people have really been digging into those itineraries. Obviously our agriculture, we're Apple Country, USA. We have the National Apple Museum. We've got several different, not just wineries, cideries, where that's all made with fruit that comes right from here in Adams County, as well as we've got some family farms like the Hullabaugh brothers. They actually take you through and can do covered wagon tours in addition to apple dumpling demonstrations. And they'll talk you through farming and kind of how things started and where things are now. It's definitely eye-opening. People think it's just, just apples, but it's progressed so much. So it's nice.
I love myself a good apple dumpling, so that sounds good to me. So, and speaking of that, talk about the food scene. Like, what's going on in Gettysburg that we need to get out there and eat?
Absolutely. There's a little bit of everything. We've got obviously some of our period fare and our historic inns, such as the Farnsworth House and the Dobbin House. We've got some really cute smaller restaurants like Food 101 that have amazing menus that are constantly getting changed, as well as most of our breweries and distilleries and cideries. A lot of them have very unique farm to table menus. And then we've got some fine dining options as well. So you add that, and then we've got some great pizza spots and different things like that if you're looking for the basic. But overall, any palate, for the most part, is covered here in Gettysburg, and a lot of it mostly is coming from right here in Adams County, whether it be the proteins or the vegetables or whatnot. A lot of it is really focused, and everyone has been working really hard together to keep as much coming from Adams County into those restaurants as possible. So that's always nice to see.
Yeah, you make me laugh because I think about what Jim's comment about his first trip to Gettysburg being a school trip, and I think the Dobbin House is kind of a rite of passage for students. Like you have to stop there, or you're just not a legal student in the United States anymore. So, so because we've all done it. So, well, maybe Stevie G hasn't, but we've all done it. Those of us who grew up in Ohio, that's where we stopped on our way to Washington, D.C. We stopped in Gettysburg. So yeah, absolutely. So that I know it well. So
you were talking about the farm to table movement and stuff like that, and the way that Gettysburg is working to really kind of keep everything, all that experience, locally flavored. It sounds like you're doing a lot to not only cater to student groups that are coming into the area, but also adult and senior groups as well. So that's fantastic. What kind of accommodations are offered, in that whole Gettysburg area for people who are coming in to travel there?
Yeah, there's actually a vast array. When you talk about the group market, most of them are looking for, more than a couple rooms so our bed and breakfast don't necessarily appeal to groups, but we have plenty of them if people are coming in, with families. Our hotels vary from smaller limited service hotels the whole way up to full service hotels and convention centers, branded hotels, independent hotels. There's a little bit of everything in town as far as different brands. The majority of our hotels are very group focused and have worked the group market for many years. So they understand the needs of pre-keying keys and having someone there to greet them, and all those fun different things that happen with, the group travel needs. Many of them have everything kind of down to an art at this point. So it just depends on what your budget is, what your preferences are, and what experience you're looking for when you come to town. But we pretty much have something to cover everyone's tastes.
That's great. I did notice also on your website that one of the things that you have focused on, and this is really, I think, a huge point to bring up, is that it says outdoors for all seasons. So Gettysburg is not just a warm weather stop. So
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about some of the other things that are being offered year round in Gettysburg.
Yeah, obviously we've got 6,000 acres of battlefield that are open 24/7, 365. Well, I shouldn't say 24/7. You can't be on the battlefield after dark, but they're open all the time and available. We have some ski areas in Adams County over in Fairfield. In addition to that, we have a Christmas festival that happens downtown every year that brings in a really good amount of tour groups. And then some of our theaters between Totem Pole and the Majestic Theater have done various, programs for the holidays as well. So as far as coming in at that time of the year, it's kind of magical doing Christmas in Gettysburg. The fall is beautiful. The weather is not quite as hot as the middle of summer, and you can get out and really enjoy being in the battlefield without getting too hot. The leaves are changing. It's apple season. There's a lot of fall festivals and different things. Obviously, with all of our agriculture, there's a lot of different activities for families, couples. And then obviously spring is our busy, for the most part, student tour season. And summer, you've got our reenactments. We've got Gettysburg Bike Week. There's other different brew fests and cider fests and different things like that happen. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for. But any point in time during the year, there's always different activities going on in town.
Lindsay, I love asking about hidden gems in an area because I feel like every destination has one. And, I guess my question to you would be, what's something or maybe 2 or 3 things that you think groups may not be aware of that they should be including more on their itineraries in your area?
Sure. One of my favorite is the Schreiber House. It is not always ideal for groups with mobility issues, but they do have workarounds that they can do. But it tells the story of, this family that was literally living their life and these 2 little girls and what that all looked like. So that's one that most people kind of were like, oh, that sounds okay. But when you go through it, it's absolutely amazing. I also mentioned, I think before, Hollabaugh Brothers, that agriculture tour, the apple dumplings, the shopping in there. They offer a couple different types of tours too, depending on what you're looking for, talking about bees and pollination and how that technology has progressed and what it looks like in farming. And then we actually, I think I mentioned too, the National Apple Museum. We were just out there yesterday, and it's kind of out a little bit off the beaten path, but it's absolutely amazing looking at what they have to offer and how fruit farming especially, and Adams County with the apple harvest has progressed from way back, right around the Civil War to what they're doing now. And they have all different types of things in there that you can do. And they do different festivals and things throughout the year as well. So those would probably be my top 3.
Great. Wow.
Excellent. It's interesting. Back in the day when I was on high school trips coming through there, it was basically overnight. And now it sounds like there's so much to do that you could do, multiple days in Gettysburg and still have plenty on the itinerary. So that way, you're not going to just fall short. And there's so much for everybody to experience. Like you said, besides the battlefields and everything else, there's so much more being offered in that whole general region now than when I was a kid. So, but that was a long time.
Yeah, I actually am really interested to hear about, and I think a lot of people really don't understand what the reenactment is, and I know that that happens quite a bit. I actually lived in a town in Michigan that did Civil War reenactments twice a year, and you would think it sounds like, well, what are you going to go do? Like it's not, So talk a little bit about that, because it's a different experience, and it's something that I think people would really enjoy, and it actually would work well for groups.
Yeah. We have several groups. Some of them are repeat, come back every year, and other ones, hear about it and decide to come check it out. But if you've never seen it, it is quite the sight. It's absolutely amazing. And the fact that these reenactors still, put on those wool clothes that are not nice and cool and go out and stand in a field July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd for several hours. It's just, you can't describe it unless you've really seen it, but I would just highly encourage anyone who hasn't and has any interest in that at all to definitely come check that out. I was actually in Gettysburg for the 150th, and when they reenacted Pickett's Charge, it was kind of like open to the public a little bit, and just seeing that, like they showed it on TV, it was just absolutely amazing seeing all of those people in present day reliving those things that were, happened so many years ago. So it's definitely something you will never forget, and kind of a once in a lifetime experience.
Well, and a lot of the people that participate, they set up encampments, and they actually live like people would have lived on the battlefield and things like that. And it's fascinating. You could spend a lot of time not only watching the reenactment, but walking through those encampments and really getting kind of immersed in that time in history, which is really amazing. I mean, people still do that, right? Because it's been a lot of years for me, so I just want to make sure.
Yes, the reenactments still happen. There was a temporary pause due to COVID, just kind of like everything else, but the reenactments still happen. And then all throughout the year, some of our different attractions, they'll do not necessarily reenactments, but they'll have living history things going on and set up and different opportunities for people to check those out. So those are always popular too. They do a World War II weekend out at the Eisenhower Farm. And then several of our other museums have those opportunities as well throughout the year.
That's great.
That's fantastic. You mentioned the big C word, the COVID word, and I know when we were talking before this, you were talking about how it is the middle of busy student season right now. We're coming towards the end of it. And I think like a lot of us, I know talking to a lot of our members, the GTO members, that the business has built back up so much again. How are things going as far as, coming back after COVID? How are things going in Gettysburg?
Things are very busy in Gettysburg. Our group tour and our meetings markets were some of the slower ones to come back because, as you had mentioned, like the outdoors, during COVID, when people were a little more comfortable, we saw a pretty good uptick in the leisure market. People were comfortable because there's 6,000 acres of battlefield. There's lots of space to social distance and be outside. But then the group tour market was slower to come back. This past year has just been very exciting. Seeing our group tour office opened back up over at the visitor center and going over there on any afternoon in May and just seeing coaches lined up, dropping the kids off and picking them up. And that's just a really good sight to see. But I think our group is still down a little bit compared to where we were in 2019. Obviously, there's lots of hope and optimism for the ones that didn't get to come this year for next year. But our leisure market's been very strong as well. So overall, a lot of our hotels, restaurants, everyone's kind of right back to where they were prior to. So
that's just fantastic, and we like to hear how the rebuilding is moving along so quickly, and that, the businesses are coming back, people are busy. It's nice to see crowds everywhere again. And, we're at that point and people are eager to travel, and it's nice to know, if they come to Gettysburg, everything's open. You're set, you're good to go. Yeah. So, well, we do want to continue this conversation. But first, we're going to take just a quick break to hear a message about our partners.
Group Travel Odyssey would like to take a moment to thank our amazing partners, including Book My Group, Travel Advocates, We Travel, Broadway Inbound, and Fly My Group. These partnerships help make business without boundaries possible, and we encourage our viewers to learn more about these wonderful companies. Now, back to Destination Dispatch.
Thank you, Stevie, for that. And we do want to continue now. And what I'm going to do is I just want to turn this over to Lindsay and Keith. We're going to have you go ahead and take us through a sample itinerary of what people can expect when they're coming in to Gettysburg.
Great. Lindsay, you sent us some great materials. And so I want to show this right now, and we're going to walk through one of the itineraries. But I do want to say and remind our GTO members that in GTO, in the Sales Manager app, you can select the button that's on your dashboard that says template trips. You can search Gettysburg, and then you will be able to see the itineraries we're talking about and copy them right into a trip with the pricing and everything all included. So it's all set up for you and ready to go. Super easy and super convenient. So this great piece is also saved under the Gettysburg record in Supplier Manager, and then a link to this episode will be there as well. So I told Lindsay she has my favorite thing. I always love a good map. So this kind of shows you where Gettysburg is in case you did not know. Some people don't. So it's got great information on it about the whole area. But we're going to dive right into this itinerary, this make your own history itinerary that they have shared. And I'm going to let Lindsay start us off with the first day and kind of talk through what the kind of the flow of this itinerary and how it fits into your area.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this takes us a little bit outside of Adams County to start, but it's a great experience and it ties in very much with our ties with Lincoln as well. So we start out on day one at the North Central Railway, which is in New Freedom, with the Steam into History train ride and box lunch. This is the same route Lincoln took when he came from Washington, D.C. to Gettysburg to deliver the Gettysburg Address. They also have STEAM programs for student groups and can customize things to make sure they're meeting certain curriculum requirements, as well as they have some Wild West different things as well. So it's a really unique experience and people really enjoy that tie to Lincoln, especially when you're looking at some of the other things to do in town.
And how long is that train ride typically?
They can customize it. They can actually, for groups, they can make it as long or as short as you would like. But overall, they average between an hour and 2 hours for their pre-planned rides.
That's a nice ride. That's great.
Yeah. So from there, then they'll depart, come to Gettysburg, check into the hotel, and then go over to the Seminary Ridge Museum, where it is the Mending the Wounded program. That program is really great for student groups, especially, but some of our other groups seem to enjoy it as well. It kind of puts you into, back in the war when that property, became a field hospital. So it kind of takes you through what would it look like if you were that wounded soldier that showed up from the time you get there through your surgery and then your recovery. It's pretty eye-opening, some of the things that happened back then, obviously, with not the medical care that we're used to today. So after that, we head over to the historic Farnsworth House for dinner. The Farnsworth House is a historic building. It was here during the battle. It was built in the 1800s. It actually housed Confederate sharpshooters during the battle, and there's about 100 bullet holes in it. So it's a nice historic building. They offer period fair dining. So it's another just unique experience, not just getting a dinner, but having, that period dress and food and offerings to go along with it.
Now, so everybody understands the dinner with President Lincoln at the Lutheran Seminary is not available because they haven't reopened yet, right? Because of COVID.
Yeah, there were some things with the dining over there that have changed since COVID. So
of course.
That
now,
was the pivot there.
I'm sure that's a kind of a mini reenactment with an actor and things like that. So can you hire somebody to do that kind of same experience at another restaurant or something in the area?
Yes, we do have a Lincoln presenter who he can be booked for group meals or even coming on the bus to do something. And as far as a presentation, or sometimes some groups will have him come to like the hotel and use a meeting room to do a presentation. But he's a very great aide, and people really enjoy having that for their events.
That's fantastic. And then we can't come to Gettysburg without ghosts.
You got to do the ghost tour.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about that tour.
So that ghost tour is in the Jenny Wade house, which for those of you who don't know or aren't familiar, Jenny Wade was the only civilian that was killed in the Battle of Gettysburg. The house is still there. There's the door with the bullet hole that's still there from where it happened, in 1863. But they take you through that house at night and talk about some different things. And it also goes on a small walking tour around East Cemetery Hill as well.
Wow, that's great. That's a nice full day, that's for sure.
Yeah, we try to, highlight as many things as we can, just so, we definitely get a lot of, well, I saw the battlefield 20 years ago. I don't need to go back to Gettysburg. So I'm trying to highlight as many of these things that are different interest points for different people. Hopefully something will catch on and people will say, oh, that sounds interesting. We should definitely go back and try that. Or extend their trip versus the one day and make it a 2 or 3 or 4 day.
Great. So day 2, let's talk about day 2.
Day 2. Once again, we're going to leave Adams County, just a short drive over the Maryland line to the Shrine of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. They have an amazing facility down there. They have a lot of different programming. They can do a historical home tour or do more tours focused on the religious portion or not. So for groups that are looking for that, they can do that. For groups that aren't, they can still talk about the history. There's actually ties to the Civil War as well, because the Confederate troops came through there on their way to Gettysburg. So they have a program that they do for groups that is called Catherine Comes Home, that kind of takes you back to 1842 and takes you kind of through the eyes of Catherine when she comes back to visit her mother and meets up with old friends and sees what her home and everything looks like at that point in time.
Great. And then a horse tour of Gettysburg. Now, this is something I have not done, is a horse tour.
Okay. There's actually a lot of different ways to tour our battlefield, but this one is the horse tour. So with this one, you can either ride horseback and go through with a licensed battlefield guide, or they can do Victorian carriage tours as well. If you're not quite as brave to ride the horse itself, they can still take you through and have that experience. But either way, they're both providing a licensed battlefield guide, and it's a very unique opportunity to experience the battlefield versus just the normal driving tours or something along those lines.
Could a small group do the horseback tour? Like
small groups, yes, they can. And depending on the size and the time, even some of the larger groups, they'll divide them down into smaller groups and break them up with different guides, but it still can be done for groups that are,
it just sounds like a fascinating way to see the battlefield. Like it just, on horseback, I mean, I have to tell you, my 50+ year body probably won't like me after doing it that way. But hey, you only live once. So, it sounds fascinating because you're kind of immersing yourself in like just the way they got around. It's really cool. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like I said, it's unique. So it's one of those for the people too that say they've already done the battlefield. Well, if you've already done it, come do it on horseback. So.
Well, and then after you do all that horse riding, you've got to eat. So here we go.
So then we would have our Savor Gettysburg food tour. The Savor Gettysburg food tour, they have, preformed tours focusing on different things, whether it be wineries or, just certain specific things, or for groups, they can always customize something. And it's nice because people get the opportunity to get like a little bit more like history of how the food relates or how, where that restaurant is in relation to history in the town. And then they get to experience several different dining establishments instead of just having like one lunch at one place. They'll take them around and do, an appetizer at one location and then an entree and a dessert and things like that. So it's a nice way to, one, make up for all that time on the battlefield and being hungry, but two, just an opportunity to sample a lot of different great cuisine.
Fantastic. And then we've got to have shopping. I mean, you can't come to Gettysburg without going to the outlets, which are fantastic. So that's a nice, with the morning and the afternoon, it's a nice pairing of different types of things to do on this day. And then the World War II experience in the evening. Wow, that's talk a little bit about the World War II experience.
Yeah, so I think I touched on it a little bit whenever I mentioned what was new, but they actually have 3 different 12,000 square foot expo halls buildings. The one that has the motor pool actually is going to be flexible space that can be used for group dinners, USO dances, private events, things like that. So typically they're not always open necessarily in the evenings, but for groups they can open. And then especially too, if a group wants to do some type of dining or something like that, they can work out. They have catering available over there to do everything over there in the motor pool area, which, who doesn't want to have dinner like with a tank, right next to you. So it's a really unique experience versus just being in a restaurant or, maybe a meeting room in a hotel or something like that.
Nothing intimidating there. There you go.
No.
Eat your food. So speaking of food, then we go into day 3, and looks like it is a great culinary day to me. So you've got quite an array of things there between food and wine. So I'd love to, you mentioned some things about the fruit farm in the market, but elaborate on it a little bit more because it sounds like a fascinating place.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's in Adams County. It's just about 15-minute drive north on 34 to get there. Like I mentioned a little bit before, they kind of typically start out in their bee room where they talk about pollination and different things like that, as well as depending on the program, they'll talk about, how they handle pest control, things along those lines. Then they can do a apple dumpling demonstration and talk about that. They'll also talk about like the type of apple and the types of apples used for certain types of baking. And then everyone gets to go out on the covered wagon tour, which is great because whether it's student groups or senior groups, it's actually pretty ADA compliant. So it's not quite of a mobility thing as people might think for a farm tour. But yeah, they load everyone out on the wagon and go out and they'll do kind of like a tour and talk about the different ways things have changed and the different types of fruit and things like that they're growing in different areas of the farm. And then at the end, they can do pick your own apples if it's in the fall and apples are in season. And then everyone gets an apple dumpling to take home with them. So
I was going to say, so I only want to make sure that sometime during the day I get to eat an apple dumpling. So, and then you go have some wine. So you're jumping from one favorite thing of mine to a second favorite thing of mine, which is wine. So do you have a lot of wineries in Adams County? Is it quite a prolific area for wineries?
We have a good bit of wineries. Some of them are a little bit smaller, so not all of them are group, especially motor coach friendly, but the 2 that we have listed on here are our 2 larger ones that are able to accommodate coaches. Boyer Cellars, which is not a far drive from Hollaballs, will take you out through the orchards, and then they have this large tasting room with this big wraparound deck with great views of the hills, the orchards, the valley. It's just really picturesque, nice, quiet place. And their wine's pretty good too. So
that's great.
Absolutely.
That's great. And then talk about the Hickory Bridge Farm Restaurant.
Yeah, Hickory Bridge is actually in a historic barn as well that's been completely updated. They serve a homemade family style menu. So even for groups, they can, work out depending on your times and things like that. But it's a really different unique experience versus just kind of like going and ordering or something along those lines. It's all still like very family run and very like makes you feel at home type restaurant.
So obviously we mentioned the Dobbin House Tavern before, but I have to ask, what are, or who, or what, I'm going to go with what are the Gettysburg goofballs? This is a, this looks like it might be quite an interesting evening. So
Yeah, they're so much fun. So it's a duo, and they do everything from improv to they have like a ghost story division. Overall, just general entertainment. They can do team building, comedy shows, different things like that. I know we've used them actually for several of our fam tours in the past, and people just absolutely love them because you can't help but not have a good time when they're around. So they're a group too that can customize if you tell them what you're looking for, what you want, what you don't want. A lot of times they're really good about putting something together to fit your needs as far as entertainment for a meal. So
that's fantastic. And I'll go ahead and share here. I mean, this is the longer itinerary that you have on your piece, but you also have different versions, shorter versions of, which include some of the same things, but also include some different items as well. So this is a great resource for tour operators to look at, to get ideas on kind of how to put a good flow together for an itinerary. And there's even a holiday itinerary on here, which is a great time to come to Gettysburg. And so, I wanted to give you just a second to talk about the holidays in Gettysburg, because I noticed that was on your flyer.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, it's a great time. It's kind of like magical to come to Gettysburg for, Christmas time. With this itinerary, it focuses too around our Christmas festival, which is right downtown. It features all kinds of local vendors, crafts, food, all kinds of fun things. But starting out, they have a 1863 Christmas Traditions program at the Gettysburg Heritage Center, which, as I mentioned, is one of those attractions that really focuses more on the civilian side of things and puts it in perspective for people, what life was like for the people that were in this town when the battle came through, before and after. So that's a really nice program that they do. And then the Victorian Carriage Tour actually is usually parked right out front. They can pick you up right there and take you out on a Victorian carriage tour of either the battlefield, like we talked about before, or just downtown. And then after that, dinner and tasting at Mela Kitchen, which is also Jack's Hard Cider. So they have all their own products that are once again made with our local Adams County apples. And then that kind of wraps up day one. Day two, then kind of starting out with some free time and lunch on your own. And then we've got the Gettysburg Christmas Festival, which I said is, it's just so much fun. It's so cute. There's so many different things and to eat and buy, and it's just a great experience. Obviously, Santa's usually here, and a lot of different holiday themed activities as well. So that actually it used to be 2 weekends, and now we're going to try to make it bigger and better and have it just one big weekend instead of 2 spread out weekends. So tour operators, that's your opportunity to come that weekend there. And then from there, they do a holiday tour of the Eisenhower Historical Site, which is decorated, obviously, for the holidays, kind of how Mamie would have, in the past. And then we've got dinner at Her Ridge, and then Her Ridge with a Victorian Santa. The Inn at Her Ridge is another one of our historical inns and dining facilities that they can do, more fine dining, or they can still do, more simple group meals in a private banquet room.
Great. And then the Schreiber House, that was what you talked about initially when Stevie G was asking you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can do some different tours, but that actually, the 5 Christmases, they go all out for Christmas. They go through and decorate every single room of that house and try to keep it as period appropriate as possible and make it like it really would have been decorated back then. And it's just absolutely amazing to see all the details and all of the different things that go into that. And then they do a little bit of a different tour focused on the Christmas season versus their standard tour. And then another one of our agriculture partners is Euler's Organic Farm and Market. They're just outside of Gettysburg, but they offer different opportunities for like cooking classes or baking. They do different breakfast. But they're very like organic based. So they'll talk about the different things that need to happen for things to be organic and how they, do all the different things that they do within their operation. And they have programs too, where you can make things and then get to take delicious goodies home with you. So
well, that's great. Well, I appreciate you going through these itineraries with us. And I kind of did that bonus because I saw the holiday one, and I really, it had a lot of different things on it that we hadn't talked about earlier in the episode. So I just wanted to make sure we touched on that. Some really great options, and thanks for sharing your thoughts about how you can put together your trip to Gettysburg. So,
yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
And also, I just want to really quick mention that we had a comment come in through Facebook from one of our good friends, Michelle. She was talking about Mr. Ed's Elephant Museum and Candy Emporium, a hidden gem.
Yes.
Lindsay, can you tell us a little bit about this, or what can you tell us about Ed's?
She's absolutely right. It's great. It brings out the little kid in everybody. I mean, you just walk in there and there's, I think, every kind of candy you could ever imagine from one end to the other and everywhere in between. And it's like sometimes they've got like the old fashioned candy. They've got all the different new candies. They have homemade fudge, which is amazing. Chocolate dipped pretzels, all that stuff's done in-house. And then in addition to that, they have the Elephant Museum, which is like so many different figurines and elephants in all kinds of shapes, sizes, forms. So you could literally spend hours down there just wandering around. And I get myself in trouble every time I go down there because I'm like, I'm only going to go get this. And, later I'm leaving with like a whole bag of stuff that I definitely don't need, but it's so worth it. So.
Sounds like my kind of place,
Yeah, I'm looking at a picture of it right now thinking there's a lot of candy there.
Yeah, it's mind blowing when you walk in. Even if you're not a kid, you turn into one as soon as you walk in there.
Wow, that's awesome.
Lindsay, this was all fantastic. If people want to get more information, and I know we've been showing your website and stuff, but why don't you tell us where they can go in order to get more information on Gettysburg?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to our website, which is destinationgettysburg.com. If you want to focus on the group, then it's /groups. But even on the Destination Gettysburg site, there's different tabs for groups. And then underneath groups, there's dining, itinerary inspiration, places to stay, attractions, all of those different things, as well as different seasonal things and whatnot on our website. So there's so much information. And then obviously, if anyone has any additional questions, just reach out to me.
Fantastic. I think we have your email address on the screen right now, Lindsay at destinationgettysburg.com. Lindsay, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of this information about Gettysburg, including some new and exciting things for those people who are coming back year after year. And we do promise you will get Stevie G there to visit one of these days soon.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you guys so much. I appreciate the opportunity. I always love talking about Gettysburg, obviously, and I really just appreciate this opportunity so much.
You are so welcome. Take care.
Thank you.
Just a reminder that we do have Destination Dispatch on Thursdays at 2:00. So make sure 2:00 Eastern. So to make sure to join us as we bring you to some really wonderful destinations. And so you can hear, sort of like with Gettysburg, you can hear about fantastic opportunities for your groups and for your travel experiences as well. So don't forget to join us as well on Thursdays for that. You can also keep up with all of this information by following us on Facebook and LinkedIn. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which I told you earlier. But our YouTube channel also has, it's an archive, basically, of all former episodes of Destination Dispatch. We also feature our GTO Coach and Go episodes, which is another program that we do on Tuesdays at 2:00 Eastern. And GTO Coach and Go will basically show you a little bit more about how our system works and give you some pointers and updates on our GTO system as well. So again, make sure you join us on Tuesdays for GTO Coach and Go as well. Keith, if they want to hear more about Group Travel Odyssey, how can they do that?
Well, they can reach out to you, myself, or Kara, who are all on the development team that will talk to you, share some thoughts about GTO, even do a demonstration for you. But if you want to get started before you give us a call or send us an email, you can actually go to the YouTube page, and there is a video on there with the top 10 reasons to join GTO, which is a really great intro to what we do and what our community is all about. But you can also visit our website at grouptravelodyssey.com. You can visit our Facebook page, our LinkedIn page. All of those things have great resources where you can learn more about who we are and how we can help your business grow.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Stevie G, can you tell us a little more about Destinations Beyond Expectations podcast and where people can listen and tune in?
Absolutely. Destinations Beyond Expectations is a podcast I host weekly, which helps us all learn about the great destinations, not only here in North America, but also worldwide. It is on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you can get podcasts. I have new episodes every Friday. And tomorrow's episode is about refamiliarizing ourselves with New York City as a tourist destination. As we know, New York City tourism was hit quite hard throughout the pandemic. So just kind of, getting to know the city again. And I think it's going to be a really useful episode for anyone who's had New York City on their mind. So again, listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. There's also the website dbetravel.com, and I look forward to sharing new episodes with everyone.
Is Jim your guest for that one?
I was going to say.
Jim is not my guest. No, I have travel blogger Carrie Green-Zinn joining me tomorrow. So
great.
Yeah.
Fine, I won't take it personally. It's okay. So.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We do once again want to thank Lindsay from Destination Gettysburg for giving us all some fantastic information today on traveling to Gettysburg. And that is all that we have for today. We hope to see you next week.
Thank you for watching this episode of Destination Dispatch. We invite you to stay connected with Group Travel Odyssey on Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And be sure to check out more of our media, including GTO Coach and Go and the Destinations Beyond Expectations podcast. Please visit our website, grouptravelodyssey.com, where you can learn more about GTO and request a demo. Group Travel Odyssey, business without boundaries.